Before the story begins, imagine a child whose world has shrunk to the size of a hospital bed, and a dog trained for danger who finds his greatest mission not in chasing criminals, but in standing still beside her. She didn't need a cure. She needed something to believe in. If this story moves something inside you, like this video to honor the heroes who don't need words to heal, share it with someone who still believes in loyalty without limits. Comment if you've ever been saved by something that simply didn't leave. Subscribe for more emotional, real-life stories where love has fur and silence speaks louder than speeches, because sometimes the one who saves you doesn't say a word. He just lays down beside you and waits. And the room was cold. Not from temperature, from time. Hours blurred. Days didn't begin or end. Only the beeping of machines reminded anyone that life was still trying. In the middle of it all lay Emma, 6 years old, diagnosed with a rare blood disorder, too fragile for a playground, too strong to give up. She hadn't spoken in nearly 4 days, her body tired, her mind quiet. Doctors said she was stable, but her mother knew. Something in her daughter had dimmed. Until that afternoon, when the door clicked open. No alarm, no nurses, just a pair of slow, confident footsteps. Axel, retired police K9, German shepherd, wounded in the line of duty, now trained for one thing, staying. He didn't approach quickly. He stood at the edge of the room, studied her. Emma's mother looked up, wary, exhausted. Axel walked forward. No sound, no command. He placed his head on the edge of Emma's bed, waited. For a moment, nothing. Then, her fingers, small and pale, twitched. Once, twice, and slowly, so slowly, they reached out and touched his ear. Emma didn't smile, but her monitor blinked faster. Her mother gasped, because something had shifted in that quiet space between illness and hope. Someone had come to sit beside the silence. Before the hospital, Emma was full of questions. Why is the sky blue? Where do frogs sleep? Do clouds ever get tired? She was a whirlwind of curly, light brown hair and mismatched socks, with a stuffed rabbit named Button always tucked under one arm. But then came the bruises, the fatigue, the bleeding that wouldn't stop. A diagnosis followed, aplastic anemia. Her immune system began to fail her. Her bone marrow forgot how to work. The world she once raced through in rain boots shrunk to 4 white walls and an IV pole. She tried to be brave, tried to color, tried to giggle. But the transfusions piled up. The medications blurred her days. Emma's parents read stories beside her bed. Nurses brought stickers. Therapists brought bubbles. Still, she stopped responding. Not because she didn't care, but because she was too tired to hope. The worst part? She never cried. She just drifted, like someone waiting for something no one could name. Until a dog stepped into her room and stood so still, so certain, that even Emma, in all her quiet, felt something spark. Not joy, not yet, but something close. Permission to stay a little longer. Axel was never meant for softness. He was trained for pursuit, lived for the chase, graduated top of his unit. For 5 years, he and his handler, Officer Grant, were inseparable. Drugs, weapons, missing persons. Axel always found what others lost, until the warehouse collapse. A drug bust gone wrong. Flames, falling steel, screams swallowed by smoke. Officer Grant didn't make it out. Axel did. Burned, limping, but alive. After weeks of treatment, the department retired him. He's still strong, but broken, they said. He stopped eating, refused to sleep indoors, waited by the door of his foster home as if expecting his partner to return. He failed every reassignment trial, refused every new handler, until one volunteer brought him to a children's hospital for a test visit. No leash could convince him to stay, except when he passed room 209. He stopped, ears forward, body still. Inside, a little girl with thinning hair and silent eyes. He pushed through the door, laid his head on her bed, and didn't move. No training, no order, just instinct. Because for the first time since that fire, Axel had found someone who needed him, not to fight, but to stay. The next morning, Axel returned. He walked past the nurse's station, past 2 waiting rooms, and stopped again at room 209. This time, Emma was awake. Barely. Her eyes followed him as he stepped closer. She didn't reach for him, didn't smile, but she didn't look away. Axel approached slowly, his movements more cautious than his training had ever required. At the side of the bed, he paused. Emma raised a frail hand, let it hover, then lowered it onto his head. His fur was coarse, warm, alive. A tear rolled from the corner of her eye, but she didn't blink. "You don't have to talk, do you?" she whispered. Axel tilted his head. She breathed out, soft, hoarse, but steadier than the day before. Her mom mouthed, "Thank you," to no one in particular. From that moment on, Axel returned every day. No commands, no therapy toys, no expectations. Just silence and presence. The kind of presence that tells you, you're still here, and so am I. Within days, Emma's room changed. The blinds were opened, the lights turned warm. A small hand-drawn sign appeared on the door. "Please knock. Ranger Axel is on duty." Emma began asking when he'd arrive. She saved her crackers to share with him, though hospital food was far from gourmet. Axel, once a creature of command and instinct, now lay for hours with his chin resting on her legs, his ears twitching only when machines beeped too loudly. Doctors noticed the shift. She's sleeping deeper. She's eating again. She's smiling. Emma even laughed. Once, when Axel snored during her breathing treatment. And that night, she whispered, "Do you miss someone too?" She placed her stuffed rabbit, Button, beside him on the bed. A peace offering. Or maybe a shared burden. The next morning, she sat upright for the first time in a week. "If you can keep showing up," she said to Axel, "maybe I can try too." She took 4 slow bites of oatmeal. Color returned to her cheeks. The nurse charted minor improvement, but her mom knew better. It wasn't just her lungs that were healing. It was her will. And Axel? He didn't need to wag his tail or do tricks. He just needed to stay. Axel became more than a visitor. He became part of the staff. Nurses checked his water bowl as often as Emma's IV. Doctors nodded to him like a quiet colleague. He had no degree, no title, but he knew when to walk and when to wait. One day, during a blood draw, Emma tensed. Her hands shook. Lips tightened. Without a word, Axel stood on his hind legs, rested his front paws gently on the mattress. He didn't touch her, just leaned in close enough for her to feel his breath. Her shoulders dropped. The nurse whispered, "He's better than sedation." From that day on, Emma began to request Axel for everything. Physical therapy. If Axel walks with me. Lung exercises. If Axel listens to my blowing sounds. Rest time. Only if he stays near my feet. She even painted a tiny badge for his vest. Heart listener. That evening, her mom sat with Officer Keene, the man who once trained Axel for danger. "I thought he was made for action," he said. "But maybe this is braver." Emma was sketching quietly nearby. She looked up and added, "He doesn't chase bad guys anymore. Now he just finds the parts of us that are scared and sits there until they calm down." It started in the early morning. Emma's oxygen levels dropped rapidly. Her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow bursts. Monitors screamed. Nurses rushed in. A crash cart followed. Her mom backed against the wall, trembling. "Not again. Please, not again." They tried a nebulizer, then increased flow. Still, her body stiffened, eyes wide, fingers twitching. Someone reached for Axel's leash. "Get him out of the way." But Officer Keene blocked the door. "He stays." Axel didn't bark, didn't flinch. He jumped onto the bed, positioned himself beside Emma's body, curled close to her chest, matched his breathing to hers, slow, deep, patient. A nurse shouted, "Wait! Her heart rate! It's leveling!" Everyone froze. Axel's ear pressed gently to Emma's shoulder, as if listening for the parts of her that weren't ready to leave. The doctor lowered her voice. "She's coming back. Keep him there." And through the wires, the alarms, the panic, came one soft word. "Axel." Emma's voice. Barely audible, but real. Her hand found his collar, and in that moment, every machine, every person in that room understood. This wasn't just a dog. He was the reason she stayed. The room fell silent. The alarms were silenced. The machines reset. But Axel didn't move. He remained curled beside Emma, his body rising and falling with hers. A second heartbeat in the bed. Her mother dropped to her knees, hands shaking, lips pressed to Axel's fur. "You brought her back," she whispered. "You didn't let her go." Dr. Patel stood at the foot of the bed, mask pulled down, eyes glassy. "He wasn't trained for this," she said softly. "But somehow, he knew." Later that day, they gave Axel a pin. Medical Alert Hero, Unit Emma. He wore it on his vest with quiet dignity. Emma slept for hours, naturally, deeply. And when she woke, she didn't ask what happened. She just turned her head, reached out a pale hand and said, "You stayed again." Axel licked her fingers once, then laid his head in her lap, eyes closed. That night, a nurse tucked a blanket around both of them, as if they were one patient now. Because in a way, they were. Emma began to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, but with steady, quiet courage. The kind that looks like one extra spoonful of food, 2 steps farther down the hallway, 3 deep breaths without the oxygen tube. Axel was there for every moment. When she stumbled, he stood still beside her. When she cried during physical therapy, he leaned his head on her knee. When she laughed, finally, fully, he wagged his tail like thunder. The nurses stopped calling him a therapy dog. They started calling him Emma's partner. One afternoon, a boy down the hall wouldn't leave his bed. Emma asked if she could go in. She wheeled Axel to the door, peeked inside, and whispered, "He doesn't talk either, but he's really good at staying." She left Axel there, just for 10 minutes. When she returned, the boy had taken his oxygen mask off and placed it gently across Axel's back, giggling. Emma smiled. "Told you," she said. That night, Emma updated her dry erase board. Daily goal, breathe deep, smile once, let Axel handle the rest, and for the first time the doctors said it. "She's improving, more than we expected." The day Emma left the hospital, it wasn't quiet. It was triumphant. Doctors, nurses, other kids lined the hallway. Axel walked beside her wheelchair, badge shining, tail wagging. Emma wore a bright yellow hoodie, the one she said made her feel like the sun. Taped to the front of her chair was a hand-lettered sign, "Discharged, but never done." Before she left, she gave a speech in the hospital's playroom. Only 10 people were there, but every one of them cried. She held up a drawing of herself and Axel, standing on top of a hill with the words, "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay." A local journalist picked up the story, then national press, then morning TV. Emma never talked about her illness. She talked about Axel. "He's not just a dog. He's the reason I believed my breath mattered." She started a foundation, The Ones Who Stay, to pair retired canine dogs with kids in long-term treatment. Axel attended every event, every school visit, every hospital opening, and wherever they went, Emma said the same thing. You don't have to fix someone. Just show up and stay. Some heroes charge into danger. Others simply stay beside it. Axel didn't have words, didn't bring medicine, didn't promise it would be okay. He just laid down beside a little girl who was too tired to keep fighting, and stayed until she remembered how. Emma didn't survive because she was fearless. She survived because someone believed she was worth showing up for, even on the hardest days. Because sometimes, what saves us isn't strength, isn't speed, isn't even hope. It's presence, silent, steady, loyal.